Before we look how to forward index across a Python string, we need to briefly recap on the range function that we've seen earlier in the playlist. Here we can see the syntax needed for a range function, and what we can produce from such a function is an arithmetic progression, and this is best looked at with a particular example. Let's consider this here where x is assigned the range, and in brackets you can see I've got a 0, 11 and a 1. Now the 0 is the start value, the 11 is the stop value, and the 1 is an example of a step. Now because it's a function, I'm going to map it onto this kind of thing that we've seen before earlier in the playlist, and we will have an input and we will actually produce an appropriate output from this function. Now for the example shown here, the inputs to the range function will be the 0, which is the start value, the 11, which is the stop value, and the 1, which is the step. That goes into the range, and this is what we produce at the output: the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, all the way up to the 10. Now we start at 0 because this here is the start value. We then go to 1, to 2, to 3, to 4. You can see we're counting up in steps of 1 because this here is saying precisely that. Let's step up in 1. And you can see we go all the way up to the 10. That's because this stop value here is 11. Now the key is to remember it doesn't go as far as 11. It stops 1 before this. So when we talk about the stop value, we have to realize it doesn't get that far. That's why it stops at the 10, because it doesn't go on to the actual 11. And in the context of this particular example here, we will have x, and x will be bound to this particular arithmetic progression here. Let's now consider the following computer program. If we look at the first line, it's welcome is assigned hello world. And we should know that this binds the identifier welcome to an instance of the string class that has the value of hello world. And I can show that here. And you can see we have hello world. If we look at the next line in the program, this one here, well, that's simply going to print hello world to the screen. And then we come on to this. And this is an iteration construct. In other words, it sets up a loop. And what's going to be executed within inside the loop is this statement here, print, and in brackets you can see we have welcome, and in the square brackets you can see we have I. And it is also important to note that this I is also here on this particular line. Now what's going to happen as we go round the loop that this sets up, this I is going to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. Now why is that the case? Well, we're using the range function. And I know it's going to start at 0 because this here is telling me what the start value is. I know I'm going to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. In other words, I'm going to be going up in steps of 1 because this here is 1, telling me go up in steps of 1. Now here in the middle you can see I've got length of welcome. Now we've seen the len function before, and what that does, it tells us how long a string is, and of course I'm passing in this string. I'm passing in the string welcome, which we can see here is storing hello world, and we can see hello world is 11 characters long. So in fact what we've really got here in the range is a 0, 11 and a 1, and of course the 11 is going to be the stop value. So if we now come down here and look at the string, we need to remind ourselves that it's forward indexed. And we can see it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. So if I come here now and this welcome, locate the label, go to the I, and let's say the I is a 0, then this is welcome square bracket 0, which means it's going to get at this character in the string. If I now were to say, well, this I is 10, then what this is going to get at is this character in the string. If this I was 5, then it's going to get at this character here, which we can see is the space character. So when we come to this iteration, what it's going to do, it's going to start at 0. It's going to print this out here, so it's going to print the H. It's then going to go around the loop again. Now I is going to be 1, so it prints the E. It goes round the loop again, and I is going to be 2, so it prints the L. And it goes on like this all the way up to where it prints the D. Now, it doesn't attempt to go past the D because this here is 11. And if you remember, we don't go as far as the stop value. So when this program actually executes, what we will see at the output is this here. This line prints hello world. When we now come onto this iteration, the first time we go into the iteration, I is a 0 because this is a 0. So when we print welcome I is a 0, which means it prints H, and the H gets printed here, as you can see. We now find that I here goes to a 1. Why a 1? Because it's stepping in 1. So it goes from 0 to 1. So when we come to here, this I is now a 1. And we have welcome square brackets 1. So it chooses this E. And it puts that to the screen here. And then we go into the loop again. And this time I is going to be 2. So this is welcome square brackets 2, which chooses this one and prints that to the screen. And of course it's now going to execute this for each of the characters in the actual string. So we can see that we go and execute this 11 times, one for each character in the string. And of course, access to each position in the string in this particular program has been set up by the use of this range function, which has had the effect of altering I every time it went round the loop. And of course, it's been altered from 0 to 1 to 2 all the way up to 10. So when we come and execute this, every time we went through the loop, then this I was a different value, i.e. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. We don't allow it to get to the number 11, which would be the 12th position. And I say the 12th position because remember, with the string we start off at the 0. The program doesn't allow it because we have this stop value here being the 11, which means it doesn't get as far as 11. So just to summarize, this is the start value. This is the stop value, which means we only go up as far as 10, index 10, that is the 11th position, and we're going up in steps of 1. Now, of course, if I made this 1 or 2, well, what do you think would happen? Well, it wouldn't print all of the characters out. It would print the H, it would print the L, it would print the O, it would print the W, it would print the R, and it would print the D, because we're going from 0 to 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10. And then of course it stops, because if we add 2 to the 10 it becomes 12, and we don't go past 11. It knows to stop at that particular point. So if you look here, you can see I've actually now changed the index to a 2 from the 1, and we'll have a look at the runtime, which you can see here, and you can see it's as I predicted. It's printed at the H, the L, the O, the W, the R, and the D. Check out the supporting website for these videos, and also consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and get an automatic update every time I upload a new video. Also consider subscribing to the Google Plus Circle that relates to these videos.